We hear it said all the time, municipalities are creatures of the province. So when Queen's Park calls for a review of local and regional governments, as they've done periodically over the past decades, well, they can make real change, and it's always controversial. Here with some context for the current reassessment that's underway, we welcome Mark Keeley. He's a former advisor to Prime Minister John Turner and Ontario Premier David Peterson, now chief advocate at the strategy implementation firm Keeley and Associates, Inc. Kate Graham is here. She's a fellow at the Centre for Urban Policy and Local Governance at Western University in London and founder of the Mayor's Project research study. And Sangraywal, founder of the Peel Region-focused news website, The Pointer. And as I welcome everybody back to TVO, why is it called The Pointer?
The dog, the hunting dog, loyal and always gets what it's looking for.
Ah, so that's what you're doing. You're hunting for truth all the time.
We're hunting for truth.
Got it, okay. Well, Sam, while we've got you in the chair there, then let's just do a little History 101 on regional governments here. They were set up in the early 1970s by the Bill Davis government. How come?
Basically, it was understood that a lot of rural municipalities, smaller hamlets, villages, townships at that time, we tend to forget that even in the GTA, that places like, for example, Streetsville, which is now just amalgamated into Mississauga, these used to be tiny little communities. They could not afford things like, big water mains, sewer systems, policing costs on their own. So amalgamating under a regional government, a two-tiered system, allowed those costs to be spread out. I sort of liken it to one household, 3 families under one roof, deferring costs makes everything much easier for all of them. That's essentially why it was done.
Got it. And Kate, 4.5 decades later, do we have a sort of an overarching conclusion as to whether or not they have worked well at what they were set up to do?
Well, I think that's one of the benefits that will come out of doing this review. So Ontario is a diverse province, right? We've seen a lot of tinkering over the years with what our municipal structure looks like. 2 decades ago, we had almost twice as many municipalities as we do now. The introductions of regions in the 1970s, we've made a number of changes. And I think it's healthy every once in a while to take a step back and ask people how it's working. My suspicion is that what we'll find is it's very different across the province. When you're talking to someone in Lake of Bays in Muskoka, they are going to have a different sense than if you're in Brampton or Mississauga in the region of Peel. So this review, I think, will draw out a lot of those insights and allow us to go from there. But there won't be one answer to say it's either working uniformly well or it's not working. I think the answer is somewhere in between.
How about you on that?
Well, first of all, I want to be an agent provocateur because that's just my stuff. Okay. But I think this is not an academic exercise, and I don't think that we need to treat it like an academic exercise, and I don't think it's a political exercise. I think you're absolutely correct that oftentimes we need to do these kinds of things. I think what's required right now is a really, really in-depth look at how innovative we want to be as a province, and using our political masters or our government to do that. I think we've got a huge opportunity to as Jim Bradley always says, to show our brains off. So I think this is a great opportunity. I'm a little concerned, Steve, that I hear things when people say, well, this is the PC party doing this. It's not. It's the government of Ontario. The Premier is Doug Ford. Point final. And I think he wants to do his government wants to do a review, and I think we ought to let this thing play out. He's got some pretty decent experts, as you guys are too, around this table. You've had, mayors on this show as well to look at this thing, and I think it is a play that's going to play out.
So don't turn it into a partisan exercise.
No, and I've heard that from politicians that are around this province. But I got to tell you too, Steve, I'm just going to throw this out. I liked your point, and if you look at how innovative this province can be, the fundamental difference between, say, Northern Ontario and how they've embraced vertical integration versus horizontal integration are the kinds of innovations that I think should come to bear on this particular study, but on these kinds of reforms that could take hold across even Canada.
Okay, well, let me throw this out here because, the whole idea one of the ideas, besides what San said, that these were set up in the first place was, for example, if you've got a region with 9 different municipalities in it, it didn't make sense to have 9 different fire departments, 9 different police departments, 9 different planning departments, etc. There were some things that ought to be done region-wide. The theory is if you do that kind of amalgamation, you save money at the end of the day and you streamline and make things more effective. Is that in fact what has happened?
So there's really 2 basic philosophies here. So you've got what we'd call the consolidations view, that bigger is better. Fewer, larger municipalities is going to be more efficient. Some services can be provided at an economies of scale, and we can find cost savings there. The other view would be, we would call it a public choice. Having more municipalities gives competition. It gives voters the ability to move to a different neighborhood or a different municipality if they don't like, and that smaller governments are more nimble and maybe better able to work together. So we have these two different philosophies, and I think we've seen through Ontario's history that we've oscillated a bit on, generally speaking, we've moved towards fewer, larger municipalities, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily more efficient or that it makes sense everywhere.
Is the verdict in on that, Sandon, as far as you can tell?
No, and my take on this is that it's the success or failure of whatever is going to come out of the review, whatever decisions are ultimately made by the PCs, by Premier Ford, effectively. It's going to depend on how much support is the province going to give to all of the different models that come out of this. How responsible will each individual municipality or regional municipality, in whatever way it might get reorganized, a particular region, will it look at things like, what are we doing about our labor costs? What are we doing about the big drivers that are making property taxes? For example, in Peel, when we look at property taxes, and someone might make the assumption that, under amalgamation with the three municipalities, property taxes should have gone down, but they didn't. Is that because each individual municipality didn't do a very good fiscal job of managing things like their own labor costs, allowing things like police salaries to skyrocket because no one was holding those budgets accountable? Will the province, in terms of its role to play, will it support municipalities, whatever the model ends up being, and if it's different for different parts of the province? For example, will it do what it did, the Eves-Harris government, in 98 and then 91, two amalgamations, Toronto and Ottawa, and immediately after, downloads things like affordable housing. So not only are you handicapping them right off the bat by downloading certain things, you're not providing other types of supports to make sure that amalgamated structure is going to be successful.
Just for the record, I think Mike Harris would prefer that be called the Harris-Eves government as opposed to the Eves-Harris government, which you call. But anyway, did you want to come back on that?
Eves, whatever you want to say. But you get the picture, I mean,
well, I think there's some interesting parallels here with the Harris years. So, in a very short period of time, we saw the number of municipalities cut in half in Ontario, and we were sold this idea that having fewer municipalities was going to reduce the size of government, reduce the cost of government. And if you look at the data on this, as you say, it doesn't suggest that at all. In fact, creating fewer, larger municipalities led to an equalizing up, where smaller communities came together, and all of a sudden, the expectations went up. And, so
their benchmarking wasn't against other sort of similar-sized communities, or say rural communities. All of a sudden, their benchmarking was with the urban communities.
Right.
But
so they want pay benchmarks and whatnot compared to what Toronto is getting.
So here we go again. It's always coming back to the politics, capital P politics. This is not about comparing the conservative agenda in the 1990s to a conservative agenda in the late 2010s. Here we are. This, and let me just use this as a very good example. You suggested it may not have worked. But in this particular case, I could say to you that when the Harris government in the 1990s said, let's do a regional reassessment of healthcare in the province, and that started this whole concept right now that we're working on with regional hospital systems. It was a brilliant innovation. And that kind of thing we've got better outcomes, we've got better patients served, we're doing, I think, an expert job in this province right now.
I've got to counter that,
well, hang on, let him finish his point. He wants to make his point.
That's all right. Okay. But then look at what this entire exercise, it's not what happened in 1990 that's happening all over again because it's the same government party. I think that they're having to look right now. If you look at Niagara Region as a classic example, 485,000 residents, 131 elected officials. So do that math.
Yeah.
And they think, but everybody's like, you're not going to do what you did to the city of Toronto and Niagara Region. No way. But if you look at that number, you've got one constituent or one councillor on City of Toronto Council representing under the old model 60,000. Now under the new model, 100 and some thousand. Mm-hmm. But in Niagara, it's one councillor for 4,000 people. And you're right. I agree with that point. That's an issue that we got to deal with.
And that, what you just said, is very unpopular. Alan Caslin, as you mentioned, the former regional chair down in Niagara, his views prior to the municipal election about everything you just said, about there was a lot of waste, inefficiencies, he actually felt that it might be a good thing to strip regional government down
You
because
know
of
what? Should we
everything
let him
said.
speak for himself?
And
We got a
yeah,
clip of
you
him.
gotta- yeah.
We got a clip of him.
And what did it get him? Booted out.
Well, he's not there. That's right. Okay, Sheldon, you want to play that? We got Alan Caslin, who was on this program prior to the last municipal election, the former Niagara Region Chair. Fire away.
Listen, in Niagara, we have 125 politicians for 450,000 people. We are significantly overgoverned.
How many municipalities do you have there?
12 municipalities.
12 municipalities
Yes.
in Niagara Region for 450,000 people.
450,000 people, 125 political leaders that I think what we need to look at is what Premier Ford has done in Toronto. And whether it's eliminating regional or eliminating municipal, it's eliminating one level of government that simply isn't necessary in duplicating their efforts, duplicating their administration, and duplicating the tax.
Okay, there we go. So, Kate, do they need as many local politicians in Niagara Region for fewer than 500,000 people as they do today?
So I will answer that question, I think also respond to this earlier conversation. If we're hoping this review points to one perfect answer that is going to make sense everywhere, or even in one community, I think we've lost the plot. You know, the review is a healthy process. Ask people how it's working. We should do that periodically. What this hangs on for me is who gets to decide. And that's where it does connect to what happened in the 1990s and to the City of Toronto case.
Well, we know who. The Premier decides at the end of the day.
And that is what I would take real issue with. So I think that, you know, I believe in local government. I believe local governments are governments. I believe communities should have the ability to decide how they want to be governed. You know, I'm not looking to the Premier to say, you know, this is what Ontario should look like in terms of how we organize ourselves. If we go back to the history, and I know we pointed to the beginning of regions, but, you know, before we had Canada, before we had a federal government, a provincial government, we had communities. We had groups of people who came together and said, we want to be able to make decisions about things that affect all of us. Local government has a very long history here. And I think that we should be empowering communities to be able to make decisions on how they want to be governed. And I do think what we'll find through this review is, for the average citizen, you know, a lot of this stuff is inside baseball. Like, for a political scientist, this is like the Super Bowl, right? It's so fascinating. But for the average citizen, they want their garbage to get picked up. They don't want to pay an arm and a leg for it. They want government to be responsive to them. They want to be able to reach out to their councillor and get a response. All right. But do they care as much about the structure? No.
Look, you've talked a lot.
I still have to counter your one point.
All right, well, you do
regional
that.
health care.
I'm just going to say this. In the last provincial election, and I talked to you about this earlier on, our firm did a very comprehensive review in every single riding. We did 41,835 phone calls to constituents in this province.
To find out what?
To find out, and we asked them, are you going to vote? And then we drilled down. Because we didn't want to say, are you going to vote for the Liberals, the Conservatives, or the NDP? We didn't say that. We got right into the pith and substance of this. The point was this: there is a very tacit anger out there. And it's not about, I want my garbage picked up or I want my water to be clean. They're angry about the fact that they pay too much taxes, the quality of their services they think has gone down, and they're very angry at the people that govern them. And this goes back to the point that we had even before the show, San, where we talked about, I think there's a sense that there's a dearth of talent for people who are becoming political leaders. And so that's where I think this tacit anger, and they're afraid to say anything because they don't want to be called something.
But I think the tacit anger, and I don't think it's that tacit. If you look at this exercise with the regional review, with the consultations at the community level, you know, going out to the public, I agree absolutely that unlike, you know, what happened with Toronto, when there was a referendum even and it was completely ignored. Right. Here, along with the public consultation, the province has to be really smart about the information that it has internally and what it's going to use to make certain determinations. Like you said, it's the PC party and the Premier's decision ultimately. So to that, the reason why a lot of people are explicitly angry, for example, you talked about healthcare. There are hyper-growth communities, especially in southern Ontario. Sure. What's going on in a place like Brampton, where regional government does not guarantee health care for the city of Brampton. It might do it for the region, but where Brampton, where the population is doubling every 15 years or so, it's over 600,000 people now, and it has less than half the number of beds per resident than the Ontario average.
But regional government was never meant to deal with how many hospitals
No,
you've got.
but here's the point. Brampton, as a standalone municipality can demand that, according to growth figures, that the province has a direct say on. Like, the province sets a lot of these things. So in structuring the way the new municipal model is going to work, it has to take into consideration where are the places that are going to grow the fastest. Should they be coupled with other municipalities when they themselves are going to experience, huge amounts of growth and probably need to be a standalone municipality?
I'm constantly watching the clock on this show, so I want to make sure we get a few more things in before time runs out. One of the things we heard 45 years ago when the Davis government, and in fact, his minister, who was responsible for implementing all this, Darcy McHugh, who's 86 today.
God bless Darcy.
God bless Darcy McHugh, the Duke of Kent. One of the things that people said back then and which they say today is that if you make these regions the way they have been made, you will lose a lot of the local identity and the sense of a place that you come from by creating regional governments. Has that happened?
So I think some of the nervousness about this review is people feel it will lead to amalgamation, right? Putting communities together, and then there is that loss of a sense of identity.
Right.
And you can look at municipalities all over Ontario and still see that. Even in London, there were small communities that were subsumed into London and still very much feel like, Glanworth or Lambeth feel like they have a distinct identity. And so regions where I understand that they were an effort to be able to allow protecting regional identity or protecting that local identity, but also providing services on a broader scale. And so I think they are a tool to be able to accommodate both.
But do those communities still feel, have they lost their identity because they've been in a broader regional structure over the last many decades?
I think most people identify with their lower tier municipality.
They still
with the
do.
City or the community they live in, not so much the region. The region is a tool, again, to provide services efficiently across a larger geography. I don't know that people feel a particular identity to the region they live in.
So if you're from Lincoln, you still feel like you're from Lincoln. You don't feel you're from Niagara region.
No, I don't think so. I think in Niagara region, they really, because I'm from there, right?
Right, you're from Niagara Falls.
I love my region. I'm the biggest fan of Jim Diodati, the mayor of Niagara Falls. I love my city. I'll do anything for it. But one of the things that I wanted to bring up, because I think this is really important. Joe Clark used to call Canada a community of communities. And there was a very interesting a trend that came out even in the last discussion at the provincial election, where they said we're a tapestry. We're not a tapestry. We are a mosaic, and that means that the boundaries are really defined. And so when you think about that, apropos to your comments, we kind of get very emotional about our boundaries. And so that's, I think, what's going on here. But I think that has to play into this, the final decisions about creating a tapestry. Let me throw this out. Let me throw this out as a bit of a. This could be a very interesting thing. Fenn, who's one of the co-chairs of this review, he understands transit, and I think if we're looking at a tapestry, one of the things that I hear anecdotally from people is transit is not reliable, and I can't get from Burlington by municipal transit to downtown Toronto. But if you had one single transit authority for the province, maybe that might resolve that issue. That would get people thinking, and those are the kinds of innovative stuff that we need to do, because we got to get people moving. Otherwise, it's going to take us an hour and a half to get here to your show like today.
Yeah, and Steve, to your point about people's identity, and I think that you've raised this point a number of times, I believe, is that if you look at Toronto's example, it's not a regional governance situation, but during amalgamation, I don't know that served the Conservatives very well. Harrison Eves, in terms of the fallout, because people in Etobicoke did not like it, and people in Scarborough and all three of the Yorks, they did not like it.
Well, here's the evidence. The Tories didn't win a single seat in Toronto for the next 4 straight elections.
Exactly.
After the forced amalgamation.
And I think Doug Ford is going to have to think very hard politically about some of the decisions they made. Whether it's amalgamation, and further bringing, certain municipalities that are become the two-tier, the second, the lower tier in a two-tier system, or even if you do something like in Peel, where Mississauga clearly wants out.
Right. Exactly.
But here's the thing.
What's that going to do to the other two municipalities?
Here's the thing, Kate. If most municipal politicians I've talked to over the years do not want to change their local municipality. They like it the way it is. They don't like the notion of potentially losing their job as mayor in the creation of a larger municipality. So at some point, and certainly the Davis government came to this conclusion 45 years ago, at some point does the province have to step in and have to impose solutions which in their judgment are better, which local politicians may not like?
I think we have a history in this province where the province comes in and says, we know best. This happened in the 1990s. It just happened in the city of Toronto with their election. And if we were to try a different approach that said, there are lots of ways we can set up the governance of communities in this province, and we believe communities can make those decisions, and we're going to support you, that we're going to lay out what the options are and, identify what a decision-making process could look like. But instead of coming in and just saying, here's how it's going to be, empowering communities to make those decisions,
but what if all
I don't
the
know
locals,
that we'd see that same protectionism.
What if all the local politicians come back and say, we like it just the way it is? Status quo, please, Premier.
And that may be the case in some places. And I actually think that answer may be just fine in some places. But right now we have got a real tension because we have this paternal pattern of the province saying they know best. And so I don't blame local politicians for feeling quite worried that something's going to happen to them without their input.
I'll ask Mark about his favorite region of the province.
Right.
If you were in charge, what would you do with Niagara Region?
Well, I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't tell them that this is what you have to do. They're aching for the province to do that. They want them to say, well, this is what we want you to do, so they could say, no, we're going to fight it. And that's the only time Niagara Region will coalesce to say no. And so that I'm just saying, I dare you, Premier Ford, to say, here's what you're going to do in Niagara Region. I dare you.
Would you keep 12 municipalities in Niagara Region?
No, I don't think you need 12 municipalities in Niagara Region.
So you amalgamate some of them?
And I'll tell you, some of the local politicians and some of the mayors with whom I've spoken over the years have said, you know what, I'm prepared to weigh in on this when the time is right for me. I think that's very interesting. You've got a Lord Mayor, Lady Mayor in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Betty Deserve, good friend, who is, she's a city builder. Watch what she's going to do. I think she's going to
Toronto City Council.
Former City Toronto Council. She's amazing, and I think she's going to, add some element of innovation and change that could happen down there. I think they do want it, but they have to be cajoled and they have to go down the path of doing it themselves, so that it's not paternalistic.
In our last 30 seconds here, you've got a bunch of competing interests in Peel Region that you cover. You've got the Mayor of Mississauga who wants out. Not sure. I mean, I don't know what that does with Caledon. I don't know what that does to Brampton. How do you see that resolving itself?
Well, and the fascinating thing is that who does Doug Ford hire as his special advisor?
Former Mayor of Mississauga.
Hazel McCallion.
Yeah.
And what does she want? Out. She wants Mississauga out.
Yeah.
Brampton is sort of in the middle because I don't think Brampton would have an issue being a standalone single-tier government, but what it doesn't want is to be tied to Caledon, because then it's going to be paying for a lot of Caledon's build-out. Its growth is going to be subsidized by Brampton without the Mississauga ratepayers, helping share the burden.
Local politics.
It's going to be
tricky.
very interesting in Peel.
Good. All right. That's our time. I want to thank everybody for coming on the program tonight. Kate Graham, who's at Western University, was a candidate for the Liberals in the last Ontario election. She's the founder of the Mayor's Project. Mark Keeley from Keeley & Associates, former advisor to John Turner and David Peterson. And San Graywall, founder of the Peel Region-focused news website, The Pointer, because he's always hunting for truth, like that dog. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.